by the time you hear this, Diddy might be in jail. Or at least scraping together to post bond, if they even allow that. Welcome back to season 2 of the podcast. Different name, same concept. I've got things to say about everything. This season, we're doubling down on the mental health content, continuing to ponder the randomness of life, and trying to keep some laughs sprinkled in between. You can keep up with me on Instagram and Threads at Pat Pontificates and subscribe to the weekly newsletter at patpontificates.com. All links are provided in the show notes. I'm your host, Patrice, preaching authenticity, wellness, and freedom to the masses. Let's disrupt. So the year started off real interestingly with Cat Williams ushering us into the age of Aquarius. And regardless of how you feel about the message, what didn't make sense, the idea was, I have come to tell the truth. I have come to uncover. I have come to really show you what the heck be going on behind closed doors. And thus is the age of Aquarius. From what I understand, I did not watch the whole thing, but from what I understand, Cat Williams was actually responding to a bunch of dudes he's seen come on this show and just tell things that were not even the real story, half truths, or were missing like really relevant context. And the context is the most important part here, because context is how the truth can really get told and sink in. And that's why a lot of times when people attempt to give you pieces of a story, pieces of a task, an ask without context, it is usually for the sake of you not being able to make an informed decision with the full truth, right? And so the idea was, yeah, he said this, but did he also tell you this and that and that? Whether you believed Cat or whoever else was right or wrong, I think what was really accomplished was now you have the whole story and you can really judge. And as we've seen, public opinion was pretty swayed on, oh, that's different than what I previously believed. Again, thus is the age of Aquarius. So what do I mean when I keep referring to the age of Aquarius? Because like we are not in Aquarius season right now. So what are you getting at? Pluto was in Aquarius. Quick astrology run through. Even for those of you who are like, astrology is fake. That's great. This might not be for you, but it could be. So hang in there. Pluto goes through signs, like 19 years at a time. And it moved recently from Capricorn and its themes, which I won't get into here, and Aquarius and its themes. Why is this important? Because I'm about to tell you what would the significance of Pluto being in Aquarius mean astrologically, and how does that affect us as people. I'm going to read some quick snippets from this article on The Cut called Pluto in Aquarius is Bringing More Unprecedented Times by Eliza Kelly. And it was published on January 18th. I will do my best to link it in the show notes so that you can go and read it for yourself. But let's start with what Pluto represents. So Pluto, hold on, where did it go? Represents all that exists beneath the surface. Think hidden agendas, systemic oppression. It also represents the incredible pressure that builds on a subterranean level and what happens when that extreme intensity gets released. Ultimately, Pluto is about truth and power. It's about peeling back the layers to identify who's really in charge, what's really at stake, and what's really going on. So what does Pluto in Aquarius actually mean? Aquarius is not a water sign, y'all. It is an air sign. It sounds like it should be it's an air sign. That's important for what air signs mean, but we won't get into that either. Air signs in general are associated with relationships, community, and networks. Aquarius is focused on the people, motivated by collective care, humanitarianism, and large-scale social matters. Also, it's associated with rebellion and revolution, along with scientific breakthroughs, medical advancements, and technological achievements. So when the planet of transformation gets tangled up with Aquarius, we should expect some radical dismantling to occur, as well as some extraordinary developments that may change life as we know it. Who will be impacted by Pluto and Aquarius? Everyone, because it's considered like a generational planet. It affects groups of people at a time. Not the same as like I was born on December 4th, so I'm a Sag, and that's like personal to me and other people who might experience, their sun sign being Sagittarius. Like Pluto affects a group, like a multitude of people at a time. This is the context for this conversation. So what does this all mean to me personally? So what I've observed, honestly, since Cat Williams and stuff, and Cat Williams himself didn't like usher us into this, I don't know, next wave of quote unquote Me Too. It was already in the cards, and let's say he was a vessel for us just being led into the theater, right? And what I've observed is a lot of reactions to quote unquote the truth being told, or just a different narrative that flies in the face of what people previously wanted to believe was true. And it's been very interesting to watch how people react to like getting more of the story. And I've had this experience in my personal life where it's like, I'm a person that I'll tell you what happened, what I did, and what they did, right? And I try to be like, I'm gonna tell you this as objectively as possible. And I've noticed a lot of times when I do that, I kind of give away my own power in explaining and expressing how I feel. But I've always thought that it was very important for the person that I'm talking to be able to make up their own judgments and interpretations of what happened and what my role was. And I've come to find out that people actually don't, on a large scale, society does not actually prefer that. This is why we have the tabloids and the gossip blogs and all of that. The weirdest thing is that like TMZ is like the closest we have to straightforward reporting. This is what happened. And for all the dirty, nasty, filthy ways that they release information, when's the last time we've been like, TMZ got it wrong? And they don't post opinions, really, which is, I think, a little bit of a like diversion. That's what I'm looking for. They strayed a little bit away from how we first met them. Because I kind of remember this, like, I don't know, tabloid-esque introduction to them sitting on that TV show or whatever. But now it's like, this happened at the scene at this time. This was like, they just give you the information and you can draw your own conclusions, which is like what news should be. Most news should be. And we have fallen away from the plot entirely with a lot of that. But the idea is because some entity wants you to be influenced, right? Our algorithms are just wow. Like even your Google search is influenced by where you are, what they think you like, and all this stuff, which is cool sometimes, but maybe I just wanted to objectively know what this thing means across the United States, not means to people who just live in Brooklyn on this particular block. Like that doesn't help me. But for some people, it's too much to come to do that critical thinking for themselves, right? For some people, they don't even realize that they haven't even been given the chance to do that critical thinking for themselves, and that the things that they have been presented with are curated through the lens, through the eyes of somebody else's agenda or whatever the case may be. Even the people who are like, stay woke, their wokeness is filtered through one thing or another. Just because we're fighting a status quo doesn't mean you also have not created your own body of knowledge influenced by bias. Like a lot of people in the sciences and STEM, just to pick on them, like think that, objective researching. That's not true, right? Quantitative research is not inherently objective. Instruments are designed by people, humans with bias. And that's why this is my favorite story that I'm sure I've told in this podcast before. When I went to get my braces done, 3 orthodontists told me I would have to pull 8 teeth out of my face, minimum 4. And then I got to the 4th person, an Asian woman who was like, oh no, you're good. And I kind of looked at her like, well, You sure I don't got to take out no teeth out of my mouth? And she's like, no. And gave me a nice history lesson on how people who I've seen before, who are not white, right? Just to, a lot of these systems and ways of thinking don't have to be influenced by just whiteness or the people who originally intended to oppress with them, right? Or marginalize. She was like, oh, no. That's based on a Eurocentric. They more than likely would do this based on a Eurocentric model of the mouth and the jaw, which is typically smaller. So basically, they assumed that I would need to pull out 8 teeth out of my mouth because I had too many teeth in my mouth, which didn't really make sense based on how my teeth were. She's like, no, you have a wider jaw, like you have more room, you'll be fine. And lo and behold, however many years later now, almost not quite 10 years later, I've had no problems with overcrowding. So I essentially would have possibly had too much space in my teeth after I spent thousands of dollars to get my teeth fixed because I was not a child, because they thought I would need the space. So nothing is inherently without bias, without influence. We see how AI don't be like doing brown people properly. The automatic sinks, somehow that black hand comes underneath it and the pipe is shook. It all feeds into this idea of truth telling, what's under the surface, and people being able to make decisions based on the whole picture and not just the filtered PR, whatever the heck, information that is filtered to them. So what does it require, right, to dig and excavate, pull out the context, the truth, the other side of the story, and all of that? There's a theme, and what's been observed this year. Somebody has to disrupt the ways things usually go. Has to poke a hole in the knowledge that has been, spread around. And that person is usually putting so much on the line to be able to do that. So to go back to the Diddy conversation, what it required for Cassie to be able to get this done, she was putting herself, based on the fact that court documents had a trigger warning, she was putting herself in literal harm's way, because now we know that Diddy blows up cars, allegedly, in order to get this truth off, right? And a lot of times people just pay attention to what happened and don't pay attention to what didn't happen, how it happened, what goes on between the lines. And, it's one thing to be that one person who disrupts. And let me tell you something, like I've said before, nobody likes that person. Not even the people for whom it would benefit this thing being disrupted. They hate, they do not like, they do not align with. There's always somebody trying to tell you, oh, you could have done it differently. People talking about, oh, she took the settlement money. Don't understand context, don't understand what was going on. I'm not going to explain it here, but there will always be that. So what it takes to be the person who stands up and says, I am going to bring truth to power and we are going to push this back. It takes like incredible gut. Even if the story is only just yours. It's not somebody else's story. It's not, you're not carrying other people's words. It's your own words. And there is advantage to systems and oppression and abuse for people to not even feel like they can tell their own stories. So sometimes, even though, you can get up and be that one person who's like, this doesn't make sense, like in the workplace or whatever. If you've ever been that person in the workplace, you know that started a chain of events. And at some point, it became lonely as a mug in that place. Speaking from experience, not just in the workplace. Everybody could have been sitting with you and saying like, yo, this doesn't make sense. This is wrong. We got to do something. And y'all decide like, okay, we should do something. We're going to do something. And you become the mouthpiece of that thing, which is very naive. And then all of a sudden you're an army of one. So disruption will require an army. Like true disruption. Like we think of Cassie and like, God bless her, hope she's safe, and not just safe, but like thriving right now. But it required like intentional effort by not just her, and people who were willing to come together with her husband, who is supporting her in more ways than one at this point, I'm sure. And really planning. And that's another thing. Like disruption does require some planning, like good disruption. Because if you are coming against something that is systemic, just end up like, this don't make sense, you'll be snuffed out very quickly. We've seen it happen. Or like Cat Williams has said, like, and he didn't even have to say it. We've seen it. This idea like, oh, that man is just crazy. For years, I myself also thought like, dang, this man is on some heavy drugs or something. I hope he's fine. I was a fan of Cat. So I'm like, I hope, he figures it out. But everybody has their day, blah, 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 blah. Only to find he had to come back and be like, yo, what crack? Crack is whack. Right? That was so this, a lot of times it's so easy to just squash out somebody who's just operating on their own. Being an army of one is not sustainable. Get your army together. Getting your army together. That it doesn't just mean find your people. It also means weed that garden. Cut the weak links, the informants, the people Harriet would have shot. I think we talk a lot about how to find your people. And one, you can't find your people if the people you have in your space currently do not align with who you're trying to be, where you're trying to go, and what the mission is. They got to stay home. Or they just might got to go. You might got to just turn them loose, because where you're headed, like I said, the informants, right? It's one thing to leave them home. It's another thing to know that if somebody come knocking on their door, they will spill all the tea without even being asked a question. That person, those people have to go. However you figure that out and however you interpret that for yourself. And also, if you have someone who is really, really tied to A, and A is something that has disrupted your life and that you are trying to disrupt and you are trying to, make waves on, and you want to find people who will help you come against A, disrupt A, break down, dismantle A, then the other person, how do you expect the people who want to dismantle the thing to also cohabitate in your life with people who want to uphold the thing? It doesn't work. And this goes beyond just a big conversation about dismantling and all that. It's in general in life. Like people talk about, I'll bring in friend groups together, or my friend groups don't match. You might want to think about why that is. I used to think that was cool, and that's just how things were. I might have different friends in different places and different spaces where they don't actually find time to come together, because I got friends in different zip codes. You know what I'm saying? But fundamentally, we should all be on the same page about what we're doing. If you have friends that you can't bring around each other for one reason or another, that's chaotic. So if you really want to make waves, make change, just commit to telling the truth. You also got to be around other people who want to commit to telling the truth. It's just that simple. Because one thing that I had to learn was that, the lie that people told in small situations became a pattern of lies that spilled over to a lot of situations. And then when I had the situation that I felt like, okay, lying cannot work here, they couldn't turn it off. And who was I to ask them to turn it off? This is how they've gotten by with the lie. But now the stakes were high for me. The stakes might have been high for us. And I'm like, okay, well, be different. And who was I? How was that going to work? So a lot of things that we ignore with people that we just commune with one way or another will come back around on us when it's time to really move and shake. To think about this as a workplace example, right? Like that person who you know never, ever, 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 ever talks well about a coworker that you know does a great job. When it's time to like have the staff meeting and talk openly and y'all want to do all of that, why do you think that person is going to? It doesn't even have to be about that person. What makes you think this will extend? They'll be able to turn it off for this moment because you need something done. It doesn't work like that. So one of the things that I am currently in a space of dealing with, grappling with, and trying to figure out how it all works is the reset button on like, okay, who is going to be my army? Right? If I really need to get something done, who's going to be around for it? And I'm not talking about on this big activist sense. I just mean even from my personal life, and really when it's time to challenge me and grow and learn new things and all of that, who is going to be in that army to get me help, keep me accountable and get me together? Because again, if you just have a bunch of yes men in your space, what will be accomplished outside of after you want to get from the current level that you're on to another level? And in my history of truth telling, my small history of truth telling, you lose people organically. Whether things just start becoming weird or, I don't know, they've just decided that like outright to tell you like, you're just not doing the thing that I appreciate and I gotta go. Some people just will front to the end, and then when you get, like I said, on the battlefield, you be by yourself. And I've seen this happen in like personal commitments, like lifestyle changes and things like that. Like, oh, we're gonna get this done, we're gonna get it together. I'll use going to the gym for an example. It's an example I want to use because I don't want to promote fat phobia or nothing like that. But like healthy lifestyle. I have a health situation in my family that I need to keep my cardio together. Like I need to be in the gym regularly. It's not, even if I never lose another pound for the rest of my life, like I have to go to the gym because I want to be able to live past 50 without having a quadruple bypass. And so thinking about the person who wants to like commit to going to the gym with you, healthy lifestyle, blah, 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 blah. It sounds good because again, people are committed to the outcome, but not the process. But for something like disrupting, truth telling, and all of that, the process is so much more important sometimes than the outcome. Because Diddy might never go to jail. Although, please. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean it wouldn't be worthwhile calling him out and having what is happening currently happen, because the awareness needs to be there, right? So, okay, going to the gym. Oh yeah, we gonna, you might be thinking healthy, or you both might be thinking like we're gonna be real slim after this, whatever your motivation is. But if you're not committed to the process in the meantime, then it becomes a situation where that person cannot help you on the days that you're a little bit low and you just need to be encouraged to go to the gym, because they're not committed to going to the gym. They're committed to the outcome of potentially being 20 pounds lighter. But first of all, there's many ways to get 20 pounds lighter, and it have to include the gym, right? But you are committed to the gym, or I am committed to the gym because I need to be healthy. And even if I stab myself with Ozempic, that's not going to improve my heart health automatically, right? So it's just an example to show like alignment really has to be there. Versus, we kind of sort of are in the ballpark of wanting the same thing, but we don't really check in because we don't want to communicate like that. I don't want to like question anybody, but let me tell you something. That communication, that understanding of where we all going to be and what we're trying to do needs to be crystal clear at all times. There needs to be check-ins. Are we still on the same page? Your army cannot be around you wishy-washy and afraid to tell you what's up. It doesn't work like that. Because what if it had gotten to the point that, okay, the day I'm about to go file this, Cassie, somebody's like, yeah, but you sure you want to do it this way? And it possibly could have happened. Now, what does that do? Potentially poke holes in your confidence, potentially make you scared, potentially have you relive the trauma of what is in them court documents. Maybe I don't even file this at all. Maybe none of the things that we learned in the past several months about Diddy, on top of what we already knew, let's be clear, we know none of it. Change doesn't happen with people who are just going to be like half-heartedly committed to what the change is. So my question really to you is, how committed are you to knowing the full story, to getting the truth, to really understanding what is out there? Because once you know, you can't go back to ignorance is bliss, right? If we pretended that we didn't know any of the things that Sean Combs has been accused of, it'd be very silly because it's out there. If we pretended like Kat didn't tell us that people were stealing jokes and that hair was a toupee, we can't unhear that. We can't unsee that. We know what it is. So once the truth falls into your lap, you have to do something with it. You now become complicit in helping to silence it or pushing it forward. And then what do you do after you push it forward? What's your goal? What do you do differently? But to get the truth, catch it, drop it on the floor, cover it up, and kick it in a corner, you are now complicit in the harm that the silence has caused. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Disrupting Silence podcast. In the show notes, you'll find a link to join the weekly insider newsletter community for like-minded disruptors, people pondering their purpose, and recovering perfectionists. You can also follow me on Instagram and Threads at Pat Pontificates. Links are also in the show notes. If you have a listener question or just want to connect with me directly about something, send me an email at hello@patpontificates.com. Until next time.